Reformer spinal articulation, long spine. On a medium spring setting, laying supine on the carriage with the headrest down, the feet are in long straps with the straps sitting on the base of the arches towards the heels. Begin with the legs pointing straight up to the ceiling, toes are pointed, with the legs up above the hip sockets. The legs are hip width apart. Inhale to prepare. Keeping the carriage steady, exhale, articulate the spine away from the carriage, pressing the legs directly up towards the ceiling until the toes are directly over the eyes. Inhale, separate the legs to the width of the carriage. And exhale, re-articulate the spine back down into the carriage from the top to the bottom of the spine as you semicircle the legs out and around until you find your body back in a neutral position. Throughout the articulation, the carriage must not move. Once you are down into your neutral body position, you can continue to circle the legs or semicircle the legs back, down and around until the legs are down on a 45-degree angle towards the foot bar. You can also reverse the semicircle of the legs. So at the beginning of the exercise, keeping the torso in neutral, circle the legs out and around, and as the legs come up to hip height, you would keep the carriage still and start to articulate the spine up until the legs are pressing up and over the eye gaze. Again, keeping the bed steady throughout the articulative process. At the top, bring the legs back together, and on your exhale, articulate the spine back down into the carriage, keeping the carriage steady until the legs are directly over the hip sockets and the body is in a neutral position. Then continue to move the legs straight over towards the foot bar until the legs are back in that long diagonal 45-degree angle. You do have the option of not semicircling the legs and instead pressing up into the bridge with the legs extended towards the ceiling until the legs are directly over the eye gaze, keeping the legs together and then separating them to hip width apart and re-articulating the spine back down into the carriage, keeping the legs hip distance apart, and then reversing the process with the legs separated, articulate up, keeping the bed steady, bring the legs together, and then re-articulate the spine back down into the carriage with the legs back together until you're in that neutral body shape. And then the carriage would move as you press the legs away from you in a diagonal. As long as the carriage does not move throughout this spinal articulation, you can choose to do any of those leg shapes throughout the exercise. The carriage would only move if you're just moving the legs.